If you didn't think this episode was going to be indulgent self-nostalgia, I'm happy to surprise you. When the Stream of Consciousness series began in December of 2015, I had a mere 7,000 subscribers. Information I couldn't even rediscover on YouTube. I had to go to Social Blade, which is a site I'd never heard of, that basically puts all your favorite YouTubers through an x-ray machine and exposes all of their analytical secrets for the public. You just go in, search a name, and just like that, you know more about our channels than we do. They even project how much money they think you make. Like, is that even legal? And they try and predict your future based on your growth. For example, today when I'm writing this is April 30th, 2018, and I have close enough to 70,000 subscribers. They think it'll take me 5 more years to reach 250,000. My fucking ass. If I'm not at least double that by then, I'll shoot myself. If you're watching this 5 years from now, there better not be a somber silence filling the air around you. Anyway, when this series started, I was nothing. Pure, uncut obscurity with a higher nasally voice for some reason. God, it's noticeable. If you're doing a ceremonial binge of these right now, you clocked it. It's unignorable. I don't even know what that's about. It's like I just talked directly out of my nose for 2 years, and then one day I was just like, oh, my vocal cords aren't up there. Let's bring it down here. And then you have what you hear before you. The sexy, smooth, lady-moistening magnet that attracts panties and vibration that makes men and women alike adjust themselves in their chairs, even though I'm only into one of those, but still thanks for the support, I guess. The croon that makes you suddenly feel an overwhelming urge to pull your phone out and open Snapchat. The stylings that have increased your hygiene threefold because of all the extra showers you keep taking. The tendrils of oration that weave invisibly through the air and tickle the genitals without permission. But I can't be held liable for that one. Allison Mack should be recruiting for my sex cult. She's obviously dupable. Maybe we can make some progress. The more I read about sex cults, since there's one making a big splash in the news right now, the more I'm like, could I? I mean, that one branded girls and there was allegedly some coercion. Like, I'm not gonna do that, obviously. But if you think about a more casual, less reverence-based situation, basically a hippie commune meets Mormonism, the Playboy mansion without the contracts, just living with a bunch of girls who are, shall we say, on hand. My hand, that is. It sounds appealing to me. I don't care, it does. You're basically a medieval king, only nobody's getting their head chopped off for underperforming. And look, I may be a self-proclaimed and probably clinically verifiable narcissist, but we can all be equals in that house. I don't need a throne to sit on. It's just several roommates with benefits at that point. Now, would I mind a little worship here and there? I don't think it would bother me too much. I respect fangirls a lot. I really do. We're already off the rails. Let's keep fucking going. I appreciate what you do. If you're out there and I don't know about you yet, know that I applaud your emotional patronage. Keep it up. You're like a third of why I do this shit in the first place. But don't pigeonhole me just yet. I know I sound like a deviant. What am I, some sex-crazed internet pervert? No. I am a romantic. I know the right girl is out there. In fact, there's several thousand of you that would check every box, that's how overpopulated we are, and under the right circumstances, these casual aspirations would fall to the wayside in favor of singular devotion to one main squeeze, baby. But until then, a man-child has needs, and when he's too Aspergery to leave his house in this new state he moved to, while he medically can't drive and is miles away from the nearest public hangout spot anyway, he gets by however he can. I know that makes it sound like I jerk off 3 times a day, but I'm pretty reserved, actually. You didn't sign up to hear that, but here we are. This episode was supposed to be about how far I've come, not how often. I'm like a pathetic egomaniac who maybe needs to be stopped. I'm very open about who I am because I assure you I am more aware than you about how sad my life is in so many respects. Must we recap? I have Asperger's syndrome, Tourette's syndrome. I am almost 24 years old and I still live with my parents. Happily, I might add. I ain't trying to leave and couldn't if I wanted to. I can't drive because I'm too fidgety thanks to aforementioned Tourette's. My availability to perform at open mics is based on my father's work schedule because he drives me 40 minutes to the Tacoma Comedy Club and back because I've been on public transit before, never by myself might I add, and nothing makes me more paranoid. It's a miracle I can fly by myself like I did for that Nebraska section of my failed relationship arc, but I still needed people in both states to guide me around the airport, including the girl who decided the day before that she didn't want to date me after all because I'm too autistic, and I was like, I still need you to show me around your airport and reinforce your point though, because when I am faced with a situation where I I don't know where to go. I sit in one place, ask nobody for directions, and attempt to starve to death. Trying to figure out the subway lines the first time I played Persona 5 nearly gave me PTSD. Speaking of failed relationships, let's unload that moving truck of radioactive materials. This is the episode where Sunburned Albino unravels in a spectacular fashion worthy of a 100-episode anniversary. My first girlfriend was in 7th grade. We were dared to kiss by one of our friends because I guess she liked me and I didn't know, so my first kiss was a dare, which I'm not sure how to feel about. Anyway, in middle school, I liked anyone with a pulse, so we started dating, which isn't a knock on her at all, but she did eventually break up with me to go back to her ex, who was a chunky 8th grader that had his ears pierced already in middle school, like, alright, you'd rather date this fat faggot, who wore a fedora sometimes also, might I add, so if you didn't like my language before, mentally place a fedora on that dude's head and then you'll acquiesce. She was in 7th grade, but she was like ready to go too, if you catch my drift. But I was not, as I had no experience and no idea how to initiate that kind of thing, and looking back, she was definitely a girl who wanted someone to initiate things. She tried to teach me how to make out once, unsuccessfully, for the record. Maybe that was my first sexual defeat, because I'm not a fan to this day. I don't have a long tongue, just a silver one, and even when I'm doing it right, I'm just like, we could easily not involve tongue in this exchange of saliva and probably be less susceptible to sick-inducing bacteria. I love kissing, I just don't clean the bowl like a dog. My next girlfriend was the girlfriend, in terms of maximum levels of shit going down. I courted her mildly jokingly all throughout middle school, but she was very sheltered and not allowed to date, which I didn't know at the time, so I just thought I was hitting a brick wall for 2 years. She was a grade below me, so my freshman year of high school, I don't see her, because she's in 8th grade, obviously. Then sophomore rolls around, and she rolls around with it. We're in marching band together, where I played quads like a fucking beast. We start talking again, I get her number, and only then does she drop the bombshell of, yeah, I wasn't allowed to date her, I would've. Oh, okay, 4 years late with that information, thanks. I just thought you didn't like me that way, but turns out you're creepily committed to your parents' wishes. So then I text her back like, are you allowed to date now? And she was like, yeah, with a wink face, and that was the largest boner I'd ever gotten. Now, something you need to know about this stage of my life is that I was the worst. It annoys me when people comment on my videos now that I try too hard to be funny, which couldn't be further from the truth, because previously I was someone who tried too hard to be funny. But I was friends with people who found try-hard comedy funny, and that was not good for my development. Now, me and this girlfriend had our thing. We dated on and off for a year and a half. We were each other's firsts in many respects, and so there was always an annoying connection between us that was good for nobody. As I said, she was very sheltered, which meant she was very closed for business, and I spent the better part of our relationship banging on the door like, are you open yet? It's very cold out here. Can I come inside? I just want to browse. I won't touch nothing, but can I touch everything though? That was how most high school relationships went, though, to be fair. It's just guys looking at their girlfriends and being like, hey, can I pressure you relentlessly into making a life-changing decision based on my biological clock? You won't regret it unless you do immediately. Eventually, she would relent. I don't know why that voice is Jewish, but it's funny, so. Eventually, she would relent to one thing at a time. Like, okay, you can touch my boobs. Then a couple weeks later... I don't know, she didn't say it like that. Then a couple weeks later, okay, you can finger me terribly. She did say it like that. Then a couple weeks later, okay, I'll touch your dick with my tongue, but it won't occur to me to put it completely in my mouth and you won't suggest it because you're embarrassed to ask. Then one day I finally convinced her to have sex with me. We're in the woods behind a middle school, which is where you go to do that, and we're on a blanket, and I give her a rousing 10-minute speech about why she should let me put my penis in there. Truly a king's speech moment, and she actually agrees, and I'm like, oh shit. Now, at that point, I've never had intercourse before, and nobody told me that when you try to have sex with a virgin who happens to be tight AF, you need a crowbar to get up in there. They say the first time for girls is painful. Try jimmying a vagina with your hard dick. It hurts, and in my case, it doesn't work. After a few solid minutes of trying to fit my hand inside a Pringle can, Bo Burnham, we have to give up, and I don't believe that counts as losing virginity for either of us. It's also important to note that we weren't even together at the time. We would just meet up occasionally and get our PG-13 on because we couldn't stay away from each other. It was a mildly friends with benefits situation that was mutually toxic, except I was the only toxic one. I had a big crossroads moment with her later, and I might be reading too much into this, but I really think if I had made a different decision to the one I did make, things would have changed dramatically. Side note, if you don't like these anecdotes so far, there's more coming, so get out now. This happened after we agreed to stop seeing each other, or I agreed, because I had this weird moment of chivalry, like, I know I'm a terrible influence in ruining your emotions, so I'm gonna step away permanently now. Noble, right? I am a great guy. So one day I'm walking to a Saturday work party for the fall musical I'm in at my high school, which is Seussical the Musical that year, and I played the Grinch because I'm as cuddly as a cactus, I'm as charming as an eel. Mr. Grinch! Hold your applause. The play doesn't even have that song in it, which is bullshit. The Grinch doesn't even sing in the musical, just reads some dumb story to dumb children. That's not the point, though. The point is I was walking there when I get a text from her saying that nobody's home, nobody will be home until tomorrow, and that I should come over. But I stuck to what I decided. I was like, no, that would not be good for us, so I'm gonna keep walking to this Saturday work party that I could have easily skipped because I don't do shit there anyway, and I'm going to not come to your house with a crowbar and finally wedge open that which has eluded me, because I am doing the right thing. Dude, I should have gone. I really should have gone. You know how few opportunities like that arise in high school? Those opportunities don't arise for me today. That's my crossroads moment. Maybe it wouldn't have changed much other than my enjoyment of that particular day, but it's a standout regret in my life. Who's next? When I record streams of consciousness, I do it all the way through in one take. If I mess up anywhere, I delete what I've just recorded and start again. Or in this case, I just keep going and laugh and it's like, oh, it's not worth it. Because I ain't wrecking my flow like that, fam. That remains true for this beast of one. So if I stumble on a word now, I'm gonna be pissed. My next girlfriend was my senior year of high school. She was a year younger and she basically just took me. Like, she came along, saw me, decided to herself, I'm gonna have that guy, and through no effort or really even acknowledgement on my part, she just acquired me. You know in movies where the girl sees what she wants and goes and talks to the guy, and it's the type of thing where you're like, oh, she is working him. Like, it's immediately obvious to everyone viewing what's happening and the guy's just along for the ride. That's how politely ineffectual I am. You can just come up to me, and if you're overtly forward enough, I'll just follow you wherever you want me to go. I put up no resistance. I wasn't even interested in her, but if you start touching my shoulder while I'm playing piano, I guess we can become an item. She initiated everything. We were standing in the hallway one day and I was leaning against a wall and she just walked up, pushed me back a little and kissed me, and afterwards I literally said, so are we dating now? I was the passenger in that vehicle, but luckily I wasn't in the car when she drove hers off the road into a ditch on purpose in a suicide attempt. But that's just foreshadowing, we're not there yet. She's the one who has my virginity. We had sex without me needing to jimmy anything. Of course she wasn't a virgin and she was also a bigger girl in general. Not fat, but like kind of fat. But I didn't care. In fact, it was more cozy that way, honestly. Plus she had big boobs and it was fun to get caught licking them by my parents and have both of us get a talking to as a result. Speaking of getting caught doing things, we had a fun chat with a police officer once. We had parked in the parking lot of a park at like 10 p.m. after our 1-month anniversary dinner, which if that night ends in anything other than fucking, then something awful has transpired. So we're in the back seat, banging our knees and heads against car doors for a while, when a mysterious light gets flashed into our windows. I very quickly and inefficiently pull my pants back up and roll down the window on my side, and the officer's like, what's going on here? And my girlfriend starts bullshitting like, oh, nothing, we're just chilling, you know. Like, everyone involved knows it's a lie, but also you have to say that to prevent culpability. So the guy's like, do you know you can't park here after 8 p.m.? And we honestly didn't, since there were 2 other empty cars in the same parking lot. He asked us how old we were. She said 17, I said 17, even though I was 18, but I'm not trying to be a sex offender until my career takes off and I can get away with it. So I also lied about not having my ID on me. And the guy didn't really care that much, because if he wanted to challenge me on it, he could have just searched me and found my wallet that I was keeping expertly hidden in my pant pocket. But he just told us to leave and let us go. So we drove to an elementary school parking lot and finished up there. It wasn't all fun and games, though, obviously, if that previous foreshadow was any indication. Now, let me tell you this. Nobody had cared about, understood, or enabled me more than this girl had. But I was getting bored of the relationship because I'm an asshole. I truly love people for a certain amount of time, and then I'm like, all right, what else is out there? And my gay friend, I could just say friend, but I like saying my gay friend. I told my gay friend about what I was feeling, and my gay friend was like, hey, I'm your gay friend, but you know that nobody is ever going to care about you or be okay with who you are as much as she is. Now, I've lived 7 years past this moment in history, and I can tell you that he was absolutely correct. It seemed like Nebraska lady was going to break that cycle for a while, but she fizzled out quick. This girl was with me for 8 months, longer if she had her way, and Nebraska barely made it 6 days. But I dumped her anyway, which was awkward because she still had to drive me home that night from a performance of the musical we were in together. Well, she was a crew member. I was Max in Sound of Music. The worst part of playing that character was having to pretend I liked children and wanted to teach them to sing. In one of the scenes, I'm supposed to read a flyer for the music competition the kids are a part of, and I'm supposed to say all their names, but I never bothered learning even their characters' names, so I was just like, and here are all your names! Liesel, Friedrich, and the rest of you. It's also worth noting that one of the nights, some people played a prank and drew a bunch of dicks and stuff on the flyer, so I had to look at it while I was on stage and not laugh. The timing of this breakup was not good, though, because only weeks before, we had been talking about getting married and having kids. I know, right? Me talking about having kids, the fuck? And this is uncomfortable for me to say, which having heard the rest of this shit should make your ears perk up, but we, seriously talked about getting her pregnant, now. Having a baby during high school. And just thinking that was a swell idea. She could be the cool pregnant girl, because pregnant girls are always super popular and not ostracized at all. So we had been discussing that. Then later, I break up with her, and a couple weeks after that, I find that I am the luckiest man in the world because she had apparently gone off birth control without telling me, and we had done it several times since. So either she's infertile or my sperm are as retarded as I am, which honestly I hope I'm the problem, because if I can shoot off a bunch of Asperger's sperm that don't know which way to go and they all burn in the vaginal acid, then I never have to use a condom again. I'm not entirely sure what happens after that, because we're friends with benefits for a while. That's usually what my relationships turn into after a breakup, just coincidentally. I'm never the one who decides that, but I never complain either. But at some point we just stop talking. And then one day I'm in drama class, and the teacher sits everyone down and says, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I've been informed that Sunburned Albino's girlfriend, this is before I even made my channel, but I'm trying to keep some form of anonymity here. I've been informed that my ex-girlfriend was in a car accident. She drove off the road and landed in a ditch. And my response to that was, huh! It was involuntary. Plus, part of me thought it was a joke, so maybe I was shielding myself from reality, or whatever I want to tell myself to not feel like the world's biggest asshole, and the teacher just referred to it as a car accident. I didn't know it was a suicide attempt, but my first thought was maybe that was a suicide attempt, at which point I made the noise. I told you I was the worst person already. I have changed for the better since then, allegedly. So the whole room heard me do that, by the way, and when she came back to school after a few days, word had definitely reached her. She found me in the auditorium during lunch and basically started screaming at me in front of everyone that was there, so I was like, hey, can we take this outside? And we did, and I managed to calm her down by telling her I didn't know it was serious at first, which was maybe 40% true, and we left the conversation amicably because I tend to just get away with shit like that anyway. Making people be okay with you being outrageous and offensive and expecting that from you takes some cultivating, but it's quite worth it in the end. Here's the thing. I have more. I have a lot more across multiple relationships, but I'm not going to do that to you, at least not in this video. The lead-in to all that girlfriend stuff was about explaining how pathetic or whatever my situational life is and assuring you how aware I am of that. But if I left it there, then you might get the wrong idea. So know that despite basically everything in this video, doing YouTube and being Sunburned Albino tips the scales heavily in the other direction. However pitiful my offline existence may be, my online persona is a colossus of great times and good shit. Sunburned Albino rules, therefore I rule. I'm not depressed in the slightest because I can make a video like this and have it be received by thousands of people whose lives and hearts are enriched by the experience of having watched it. I can summarize my life into tragic vignettes of garbage and still come out smiling on the other side, as my pain and misfortune are whisked together to create a batter that will bake a cake of laughter and hysterics. And so, for the 100th time this series, and hopefully 100 more after, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.